Welcome to the Science Plus Love Equals Cure podcast, the STXBP1 10-minute monthly update. This is podcast number 11. I'm Charlene Sunrigby, president and co-founder of the STXBP1 Foundation, and I'm also mom to STXer Juno and her big brother, Luca. We have two topics today: the Uplifting Athletes Young Investigator Draft and an interview with Zach Grinspan from Weill Cornell. All right, first topic, Uplifting Athletes. Last Saturday, I attended the Uplifting Athletes Young Investigator Draft event in Philadelphia with fellow board member Danielle Greiner. It was an amazing event. We were there to celebrate a young investigator and longtime collaborator, Noah Guiberson, who we just awarded a $20,000 grant, which was co-funded with Uplifting Athletes. Noah is part of Jacqueline Barret's lab at Weill Cornell Medicine, and as part of this grant, he is studying a new missense mouse model. The mutation is G544D. We are very interested in missense models since we want to understand whether missense mutations account for some of the symptom differences we see in STXBP1 patients. Congratulations to Noah on this grant. Please be on the lookout for Uplifting Athletes Uplifting Experiences events, which enable rare families to connect with athletes. We will post these to social, and I want to tell you that I love this organization. Second topic. This week, I caught up with Dr. Zachary Grinspan from Weill Cornell Medicine. We talked about studies for 4-phenylbutyrate, also called Ravicti, and also about his STARR Natural History Study clinic that just opened to participants. This is a great opportunity for STXBP1 families to be seen for expert multidisciplinary care while contributing to research. Zach will talk about the team he has recruited to the STARR clinic. Let's listen in. Hi, Zach.
Nice to see you, Charlene.
Well, I was reflecting on this over the weekend, and the fact that you've presented and been part of our community for many years. But I would love to start with actually your personal background. So you're a pediatric neurologist, and so how did you get interested in neurology and specifically working with kids?
Great question. And again, thank you for having me on your podcast. It's always good to talk with you. We've been chatting for several years now about STXBP1, about rare diseases. So I was a math and physics major in college and was okay at it, but didn't think that's where I wanted my career to go. And so I actually was a high school teacher for 3 years after I finished undergraduate. I taught high school math and computer science, and then realized that my mom was right. I should be a doctor. And so I applied to medical school and I got in. I was at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, which is here in New York in the Bronx. There, I think, were a few things that led me to select child neurology. One was Oliver Sacks. I read a bunch of his books, and he has this really brilliant way of taking these often quirky anecdotes from some of his patients and really using them as these sort of windows into people's lives, into their souls, and ask these very deep questions about what does it mean to be human, and what is our experience, and what is our shared reality like. So I was like, this is groovy and amazing, and I want to do this. And then I had been a high school teacher, I've been a camp counselor, and so kids I knew was going to be the focus. And then I was very lucky. Isabel Rappin was a pediatric neurologist who had been on faculty at Albert Einstein since like the 50s. And some of my senior teachers here at Cornell even remember learning from her in their training. So she was actually on service when I did a rotation, and I was just totally entranced. She had maybe the most energy of anyone I had ever met and was so passionate about child neurology. So that turned me on, and then I applied and did my training and got my faculty position. I've been here at Cornell since 2011.
Wow, that's Amazing. Oliver Sacks is just an amazing author. I have really been moved by his work, and that's awesome that really started you down a path. I'm curious about, so then you're at Weill Cornell, and how did you get introduced to STXBP1?
Um, so I'd heard first of STXBP1 as a resident because it was a genetic cause of infantile spasms. The world of genetics in the epilepsies was still very new. Um, and so having some names and some things to point at and to think about was compelling. And so it called to my attention then. We had a few patients here in my early faculty days, but what really drew my attention was Jackie Bure, who's a PhD neuroscientist here. I had run into her, 2011, 2012, shortly after I got in here. She was also junior faculty, and she was explaining to me her work and that she was looking at what she called Monk 18.1, but we know as STXBP1. And she had an approach that seemed compelling. She's like, listen, I'm going to use these chaperones in some mice and some cells. And I'm like, that's great. This is a bad disease. If you fix it, please let me know. So a few years later, she emails me. She's like, I published my paper. I got something that works. I'm like, oh my, please come over. Please tell me what you got. So she came to my office. She had discovered that you can use these chemical chaperones in a mouse model of STXBP1 and that it seemed to help. And literally we sat down and we Googled the molecules that she found that worked. It was trehalose and sucralose were the first two. Those are sugars. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get those into somebody's brain? Because when you eat them, they're immediately dissolved and turn into fuel. And then it was a molecule called phenylbutyrate, which I'd never heard of. So we Googled it and we learned that it was an FDA-approved drug. So it was really that conversation with Jackie that lifted STXBP1 in my mind as suddenly this rare, really devastating disease where maybe we had a treatment that was novel.
Well, and you went on to lead the first trial for phenylbutyrate with STXBP1 and another disorder, SLC6A1, which was, so important for our community. And I thank you for that. I wanted to ask you about, so what's the progress in terms of, for phenylbutyrate? And, there was this recent announcement from Immedica. Maybe you can, help break that down a little bit for our families.
Yeah, sure. Let me answer a few questions in there. I'll continue the story. So after that conversation with Jackie Bure, that work, the first author was Noah Guiberson, who just won some award, an award from STXBP1. So thank you for funding my outstanding and wonderful colleague. We launched a pilot study. The initial funding for that study came from the center, the CHOP Center for Orphan Diseases, which was a funding drive led by the STXBP1 Foundation. STXBP1 Foundation has continued to fund us. We've gotten some funding from SLC6A1 and now from Horizon. It's now called Amgen to allow us to continue the study. We did 10 children with STXBP1, 10 with SLC6A1, and found some early wins, particularly around seizure control. To answer your question about Immedica, so based on our abstract, our poster, and our talks, the European distributor for Ravicti, that's the drug that we've been using in the study, decided that they would be interested to potentially do a trial in Europe. The public-facing announcements that got us excited was that they said that they got orphan disease designation for STXBP1. This was a regulatory move that they made in order to ease their path to do a trial. And then they've been talking to many people about how do we design the trial, how do we do it, who do we enroll, and the last I spoke with them, there was good enthusiasm, although I can't actually speak on their behalf. So we'll see how that goes. But it's very exciting. I mean, the more data we can get about this particular approach, the better.
Yeah, I agree. It's important to have good data. And I actually want to move to talking about more data collection, but also wanted to also mention, it's funny to think that that was 2019 when we were trying to get this first clinical trial, that you led up and running. And it was amazing that through the $1 Million Bike Ride and the Lulu's Crew fundraising, as well as Clara Inspired coming together, multiple folks from the STXBP1 community really mobilized to make that happen. So going back to the point about data collection, so we have started a natural history study for STXBP1 called STARR. And I would just love to hear about the STARR site at Weill Cornell, and what your progress is. The site's open, right?
That's right. That's right. And just to amplify my gratitude towards Clara Inspire, Lulu's Crew, the $1 Million Bike Ride is really very deep. The big lesson, I think, for rare diseases in general is that these pilot fundings allow people to get started, to get a clinical trial apparatus up and running, to learn about the disease, and to get the details of the study ironed out, so you can bring it to scale. So it's just been tremendous. And then it's also linked Weill Cornell with the STXBP1 community in this enduring way through the STARR study. So as you mentioned, the STARR study is a longitudinal natural history study, and the real vision, and I'm parroting your words because this is, the foundation has really been instrumental in launching this, is to get high quality longitudinal history data so that as these breakthrough therapies come out from industry, that we have something to compare it with. It's different than just making a registry, which is what rare diseases have been doing for decades. There's a different set of considerations when you're imagining that the data you're collecting is going to go in front of the FDA. It has to be very granular. There's a degree of redundancy in how the data is entered. There's all these regulations that you need to follow so that the data has this very high level of trustworthiness. We are at Weill Cornell, one of the 4 sites. People can come to New York City, and they can visit with us. We have myself as the PI. We have this amazing research coordinator, Millie Stone, who has really made everything come together. Dara Jones is a physiatrist, an MD physiatrist that sees all of our patients. And then Jen Cross is a developmental pediatrician. And then Tammy Gaines is a physical therapist who does those evaluations. It's a real team approach. And then Shanila Lakhani has also been coming as a genetic counselor. What's been really lovely about the patients we've had come through already is that we learn a lot, but we're providing this high level of care to these families that's really above and beyond what we normally do in a clinic visit. And so, we've had families come, and it was like quite moving for me. There was a family who I've known for more than a year, and I thought that we had talked about everything, but it's like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. When you have a whole morning to spend with a family, you learn a lot, both about the child, their disease, the family dynamics, and then the family has an opportunity to ask all these questions that they may not have had time to answer. So we were able to provide actually quite a bit of reassurance to the family about their prospects for other children, about what the cause was. There was some anxiety about, is this my fault? Is this something that I did? We were able to provide some reassurance. And in addition, having Tammy there, Dr. Cross and Dr. Jones added this depth of advice around development, physical therapy, how to make the most out of the developmental trajectory that the child had. So I was so pleased with what we had to offer. We are open for enrollment. We are happy to take on more patients, and we're very excited to be part of this important initiative.
That is awesome. You've really built out the team there. And that's exciting to hear. I think it's so important what you're talking about. Obviously, we are very concerned about creating the right data set, as you said, to support therapeutic development and the hopefully successful approval of transformative therapies for STXBP1. But our families need care today, and it is really challenging to get that kind of expertise, but also care providers who are really invested in in STXBP1. And I'm really excited to hear that you've really built out, augmented your expertise with a full team. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, this has been really great. Zach, how do people get in touch with your team to sign up for to participate in the STARR study?
That is a great question. So I am very fortunate to have two amazing people that support our work. Natasha Basma, her email is nab2781@med.cornell.edu, and Millie Stone, who's the newest member of our team. Millie's email is aks4017@med.cornell.edu. We have, I think we've been doing it Tuesday mornings. So we have a number of clinics set up, and we've been reserving those dates. And so people can come and they can get this set of services. And then during that delivery of care, we're also collecting data. And so it's sort of a win for everyone, because the community gets to learn about the disease in a lot of granular detail. And then the families that come get this much higher level of service and comprehensiveness to the care they get during the visit.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. It's great to see you.
Good to see you too, Charlene. All right, have a great day.
Thanks. Okay, let's call it a wrap for today, and I'll see you next month.